This is great, you have it all divided up, but how am I actually gonna keep this organized and pay for these things? Hello and welcome to my channel, My Sister Says, where I share any tips that I want my little sister to know, or any of my other sisters out there, about how to live a happy, healthy lifestyle on a budget. Today, I'm focusing on the budget part, about how to make a budget for this year of 2020. I'm going to talk about 8 steps that you can go through to save money, figure out what you're spending your money on, and actually do it. Actually save money. It's a simple system that works. We love using it, and I know that you can do it too. So let's get started. The first step is to look at your previous year and figure out what you've been spending all your money on. Now, if you don't have the time or the patience to go through your entire year, that's fine. You can just pick maybe 3 months or 4 months and take a good look of everything you've spent your money on. Now, I suggest separating this into categories by expense. For example, you want to total up all of your expenses on home, which would, for me, includes our rent plus our utilities. Then I would total your grocery expenses. Now, depending on the needs of your family, or if you are just by yourself, this works too. You might have different categories. Some of the categories I will talk about more later is home, education, transportation, health, dates and fun money, and any other miscellaneous expenses that you have. So you may wonder, how am I going to figure out everything I spent my money on? Because I buy a lot of things. So do I. So one of the ways that you can do this is to use mint.com. It's a free website. You can sync it up with your bank and it will categorize your expenses and figure out what your money is being spent on. The downside of this is that it's not super specific. It may categorize things incorrectly, but it is a good way to start if you don't have tons of time to categorize everything out. When I did this, I actually did it for the entire year of 2019, and it took forever, but I really wanted to have a good idea about what I was spending my money on. And you will probably be surprised what your money is being spent on, like how I noticed that we were spending a lot of money on buying just ice cream. Then once you figured out by category what you spent your money on, figure out for the year what your average would be. So for example, if you only use 3 months worth, you would multiply that by 4 and divide by 12. So you just have an average monthly amount, or get your average yearly amount. Then once you've totaled all of your expenses, step 2 is to figure out how much money you're making, how much money is coming in. Now, if you have a $60,000 salary, that's probably not how much you're actually making. So pay attention to how much your net income is, how much money is actually coming into you. And get your average for the month, and also have the number for how much you are making in a year. Both of those numbers will be helpful. Step number 3 is to decide how much money you're wanting to live on. What I mean by that is, our goal as a family right now is to live off of 70% of our income and save the remaining 30%. So for example, if you were making $50,000 a year and you wanted to live off of 70% of your income and save 30% of it, then that would leave $35,000 a year as your budget of the money that you can use to buy things. And then that would leave the remaining 30% to go into your savings. And I will talk about that later. So now that you've decided how much money you have to pull from, step number 4 is to divide out your expenses. I like to do this by month because I think it breaks it down into easier chunks. So if you have, like we're using in our example, you have $35,000 for the year, then that means you get $2,916 per month to live off of. The easiest way I feel to break down your budget expenses is to start with things that don't really change that much, that are really predictable, like your rent. So we calculated how much our cent rent is per month, and then we also got an average of what we were spending on utilities, and we added those up, and we're able to determine, okay, this is how much we're spending in our home expense category. The categories that we use in our family are home, education, grocery, health, transportation, other, and dates and fun. So we have those 7 different categories plus 3 savings categories. And I will talk about those savings in a minute. So if it's a big expense, like you have to pay for your tuition for a 6-month period, and let's say it's $3,000 for your tuition, then what you would do is divide that up by 12 and decide how much money you need to put away a month in order to pay for that big expense. That way you're not having to fork out $3,000 all at once and mess everything up. You could also use this principle for saving for Christmas. So take some time and think about how much you're going to be spending on your Christmas presents, decorations, food, whatever is in that category, and save up through the entire year of this year of 2020. So then once Christmas comes, you have the money set aside to be able to pay for that. Another big expense, the top 2 expenses for you will probably be your home expense and your grocery expense. If you don't know how much to budget for your grocery category, a good rule of thumb is $50 per person per month. We've been using that formula and it has been working perfect for us. It helps you to stay on a tight budget, but to be realistic about how much money food costs. And when I say grocery, this encompasses all of your food that you're spending your money on, as well as all other consumables. So basically everything you could buy at Walmart. So after I'd done all of my homework about how much money we've been spending before, how much money we're making, and how much money we want to spend in the next year, I got together with my husband and we sat down and figured out how much we wanted to spend, how much we wanted to budget for each of these different categories. If you are married and you are sharing income with someone, I highly suggest doing this process with them so that you can be on the same page and working together towards it. I'm a very visual person, so what we did was I actually put together a bunch of index cards. This is an example of one of the little cards we used, so I will show you it. You get to see the real numbers here. But this is our home category. So I wrote down how much money we were spending on rent. We are really lucky. We have really affordable rent right now, and it's $743 a month. And our utilities were averaging to total, all our utilities was about $204.50 a month. So I added that together, and that means every month we need to budget $947.50 for our home budget. Now, if it's not something that's so fixed like that, you would obviously take the average. So maybe after looking at all your expenses, you see that you're spending $200 a month on dates and you are like, whoa, that's way too much money. Whoa, that's way too much money. So what you could do is sit down and say, okay, how much are we actually wanting to spend? This is what we spent last year, and our budget we're going to set is this much. As you can see, when we worked together, we decided we would budget $950 a month. This is just to give us a little bit of wiggle room by rounding up so that in the summer when we're spending way more on electricity, everything would balance out. Now, you may notice that this is highlighted blue. I will come to that in a second. So after you've sat down, you've divided out all of your different categories, how much you were spending, how much you want to spend in the future. Other categories, like for example, a health category, you may not actually be spending money every month on that category, which is a good thing. You don't want to be in the hospital or getting prescriptions every single month, but some months might be worse than others. So what we chose to do is to set aside a certain amount of money every month to go towards health costs. So then if we do have to go to the emergency room or we do have to start paying for a medication, we already have money set aside to cover those costs. So when we sat down and figured out all of our budgets in the different categories, we also accounted for the budgets for these categories. The first one is we want to put 10% of our money every month towards an emergency savings fund so that hopefully as we work on it, we can have an emergency fund in case we don't have income for a while, or if something happens or we have a big unexpected expense, we have money set aside for that. Another category we have is our down payment. savings account. Now, this could be anything you're saving for. We are currently renting and we would love to buy a home. And so we are saving 10% of our income every month towards a down payment. The third of our savings, 10% of it, is going towards paying tithing. We are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so we give 10% of our money to the church every month. But before you start saving this 30% or whatever you choose to put aside, make sure that you pay off all pressing debt first, like credit cards or lines of credit or debt that you maybe owe to other people. That should be paid off first, and then you can really start saving. Okay, now that you've sat down with your spouse or whoever you're sharing your income with, and you've put all your cards together, now it's time for step number 5, which is to assign a manager for the budget. I really like doing this because I feel like it helps you have more unity figuring it out. Obviously, if you're doing this by yourself, you have to manage everything. But if you're not, you can work together with your spouse. So as you can see, some of our cards are pink and some of them are blue, so that the budgeting is split between you. You can work together as a team. So I am over the grocery category. I'm also over the health category and some other ones. My husband is over the home category. So he is in charge of paying the rent, paying the utilities. I'm in charge of grocery shopping and making sure I stay in the budget for that. This really helps us to divide up the work, to not fight about money as much, and to really be on the same page about what we're spending money on. Step number 6 is how to put all this in practice. You're probably thinking, this is great, you have it all divided up, but how am I actually going to keep this organized and pay for these things? So you could put it all in one checking account and just kind of divide up the money and keep track of it on paper. But what we like to do is to have separate savings accounts and even separate checking accounts so that the money is put away and you can't see it and you can't touch it. We bank at Mountain America and they allowed you to add additional savings accounts for free. So we have a down payment savings account and we have a savings account for emergencies, and then we have our general savings account. So we can put all of those into the places that we need to put them, and then we would pay out our tithing. You can also make a health checking or savings account and have that money automatically transferred to those accounts every month so that you're not even thinking about it and the money is being saved. But for your main checking account, you are going to have to keep track on, obviously, money you're spending on dates or for fun activities, your money you're spending on groceries or your utilities, because those will probably all come out of your checking account. But that's okay. It can come from there, and just keep track of what your budget is and keeping that as your goal. Step number 7 is one that is really fun to me. When you are setting all of your budgets, pick something that your family or yourself would love to have money for. Maybe it's upgrading your phone, or maybe it's going on vacation. It's a fun goal. We call it our Jeffrey Fun Fund, that is good to actually assign something specific that you want to save for. So every month, let's say you did really good on meal planning and grocery shopping that month, and you had an extra $30 left over in your grocery budget. Have an account so that at the end of the month, when you have that extra money, you can put it into that account. And it's a fun motivation to be a little bit more frugal, to save a little more so that you can have something fun to save for that's set aside. It's kind of like having a jar that you put all of your coins into, but it's set for a specific purpose. And it may take a little while, but eventually you'll be able to use that account for your fun activity or item that you've been saving up for. Step number 8 is to keep yourself in check monthly. Now, this doesn't have to take a lot of time. If you're doing it every month, it'll take a lot less time than having to do it all at the end of the year. But what I mean by this is, okay, it's the end of the month. Let's see how we did, just to make sure that you're keeping to the budgets you set. Now, obviously, these budgets don't have to be concrete. Especially if it's your first time making a budget, maybe you underestimated how much money you needed to spend on food or how much money you were spending on your gas. But be careful with this, that you're still wanting to budget. You're wanting to save money, so things are going to have to be tight. Maybe you won't be able to buy the name brands of food, or maybe you'll have to go to the gas station that's a little bit out of the way that has the cheaper gas in order to cut down on these little things and save money in the end. So as you review at the end of the month, make sure that you're staying within your budget, or maybe you need to adjust your budget a little bit, and maybe you'll find that your budget is too high, that you're spending way less than you budgeted for, which is great. You can lower that budget and try and keep it at that same rate for the next month. You will be surprised what a huge difference this makes. It really just comes down to little decisions. It might take a little bit at the beginning as you're putting everything together, but as you keep it up every month, you'll be able to save and spend more and make the most out of your money. Let me know in the comments below if you have ever used a budget and if it worked or not. I want to know. Please also like and subscribe. I am a new channel here on YouTube, and I would love your support and to have you subscribe to my channel so that my channel can grow and I can keep making more videos. Thank you for watching. Check out some of my other videos, and I will see you next time for more money saving tips.